Everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetzky, Andy Kamenetzky. Sunday was all about finding out who the Lakers are going to play in the first round. And now we know it's the Minnesota Timberwolves in what should be a very entertaining, very difficult first round matchup. We'll break down next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how rare you get your podcast. This one's always free, never behind paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 34,000 subscribers, Andy, are all excited to get to the point. The Lakers now know who their first round opponent is going to be following Sunday's game. Technically speaking, the Lakers did play a game on Sunday, but it was a meaningless 109-81 loss to the Blazers because the Lakers were locked into the 3 seed. They were waiting to see who would be the 6, and we now know it is the Minnesota Timberwolves. So plenty of initial thoughts about this series coming up in a moment. Do want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Andy, I'm not going to lie to you or to our audience. I spent a lot more time focused on the Warriors Clippers game than I did on the Lakers Blazers game on Sunday.
That game was both better against the Warriors and Clippers. It's actually a terrific game. Went to overtime before the Clippers eventually won, which played a role in the Wolves ending up the Lakers' opponent, which was in part why both of us were spending some time watching that game. Also, you know, the stakes whenever the Lakers are starting Bronny, Shake Milton, Dalton Connect, Keefe, who was probably pissed off he had to stretch before a game, and Alex Len. Not exactly high stakes for the Lakers. Yeah. I mean, for anybody interested in anything that happened in the game, it was a rough shooting and scoring afternoon for Bronny. 4 points on 2 of 10 shooting and 3 turnovers, but he did have 4 steals, 6 assists, 3 of which came on back-to-back-to-back possessions, both setting up guys inside and out. So that was something nice for Bronny. Shake Milton had a few possessions pretty close to in succession where he actually scored around the rim as opposed to putting up jump shots. So, you know, in terms of looking for different things from Shake, that was nice. In the sake of fairness, Alex Len had an excellent touch pass from under the basket, setting up Dalton Connect for a layup. Koloko had 8 boards and 5 blocks in 19 minutes. He was the bright spot of the 3 backup centers. Alex Len, I believe, fouled out in 19 minutes. He very much understood the assignment. And I don't know, I don't actually have clarification, Brian. This actually matters leading up to the playoff discussion. I don't know when the actual deadline for the Lakers converting either Koloko or Jemison is. Like, I know it is the 13th, but I don't know if it's like by 11:59 or the end of the game. I've been looking around and can't find.
I think at some point on Sunday, the Lakers, like Monday, we should know what the Lakers have done.
Yeah. Oh, Monday for sure. I just meant.
Oh, we'll see. It's one of these things, like, regardless of what they do, and we'll move on after this because the game itself just isn't worth too much time. But
that's my entire game breakdown.
Yeah, no,
that was it.
What the Lakers do at that backup center position is still only going to be relevant in total emergencies, because whether they decide to keep Len on the roster or convert Koloko, convert Jemison, and then cut presumably Len, that will only matter in emergencies because none of those guys are going to play. If any of those guys play, it probably means something has gone wrong or very situational stuff specific to Minnesota. But it's one of those things that if it matters, might be a little bit time to worry. We'll get to the backup center stuff here later. But like, I got an email from a friend of mine, or a text, I should say, from a friend of mine who's like, "Who do you want them to play? Like, which is a better opponent, the Warriors or the Timberwolves?" And I gotta be honest, like, it took me a second to come up with an answer, because I think while the conventional wisdom, especially based on how well Golden State has played over the last month, or they kind of stumbled down the stretch a little bit. Since acquiring Jimmy Butler, the Warriors have been outstanding. I think Minnesota has gone a little bit under the radar. When you start breaking down some of the numbers, I'm sure you've seen them. We'll get into them in this episode, certainly throughout the week. Minnesota is a very good team. And I think they've been slept on a little bit because they haven't been as dominant as they were last year, given all the upheaval with the big trade of Cat before the season started and all that. They've never really gotten on track in the way people thought they should. But at the same time, they are a very good team.
They won 49 games. The Lakers won 50. So even if you want to say that the Lakers, they're essentially two different teams and you got to disregard a lot of what took place in the first half, and I actually think that's true, a lot can be said along those same lines with the Timberwolves, because between the injuries that they've gone through and having to figure out the best ways to incorporate Dante DiVincenzo and especially Julius Randle, who is he is not, I like Julius a lot. He is not, I think, overall as good a player as Cat, but more importantly, he is not as clean a fit with Cat as Cat was with the Wolves either. So when you consider that with all of those caveats, the Wolves still managed to win 49 games in a very competitive Western Conference, it speaks to, like what you were saying, they're a good team. I also think, and this gets, I guess, to the backup center question, sort of overarching. I think they're an interesting first round test for the Lakers, among many reasons, just because they're a very big team. Like they're a big team with a lot of length, a lot of size. I think they are bigger than the Lakers in the aggregate, even if, like we've talked about, the Lakers are not a small team by any stretch. And I think to whatever degree the size of the Lakers, really just having one playable center, to whatever degree that much matters, I think is going to be tested by the Wolves as much or more than maybe any other team in the West, other than, I guess, maybe Denver, depending on how much you think Jokic can do damage just by himself. Or, Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren with OKC. But Minnesota is perhaps the biggest team in the West, certainly among the playoff teams. So in that sense, it's a very interesting sort of lab experiment right off the bat for the Lakers.
And, you look at it, the Lakers and Wolves played one time in the post-trade period of the season. And we're talking about the Luka Doncic trade. It was a 111-102 Lakers win at home. And that, I guess you could sort of try to draw some inferences from it. But to your point, Andy, Julius Randle didn't play in that game, and Rudy Gobert didn't play in that game. And
Anthony Edwards got ejected.
Right, Anthony Edwards got ejected. And so while that, he played 26 minutes, but he didn't play his full regular load. And so, when you look at the players who didn't play, I think you have to throw that one out too. And like you say, the hard thing about the Timberwolves is that not just they have a lot of size, they have a lot of size that kind of behave in different ways. Rudy Gobert is not necessarily a dynamic scorer, although you really do need to pay attention to what he's doing around the rim. He can surprise you with 26 just on dunks and putbacks and all these other things. He's an enormous human being with an incredible potential for offensive rebounding and stuff, and finishing lobs and whatever. But then you also have a very dynamic scorer and three-point shooter in Naz Reid. And so like I said, I don't envy the Lakers for any of the teams that they had to play. Like you say, they won one more game over the course of the season than the Timberwolves did. I think people are going to look at this as like the warm-up for the Lakers in the first round before the Warriors or something in the second. And I'm not convinced the Warriors are getting through either. But the Western Conference,
Warriors got to win their play-in before they even start thinking about it.
Right. I assume they will, but I do think them being dumped in the play-in hurts. And the Rockets are not a pushover team. They're going to be rested at home, all this other stuff. The whole Western Conference could be completely, in upheaval by the time the second round of the playoff comes around. Some numbers about why we both think Minnesota is such a strong and formidable opponent for the Lakers. We'll get to some of that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Prize Picks basketball and hockey playoffs. They're heating up. There's no better way to turn your sports knowledge into real rewards than with Prize Picks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, then you're in. And you can even combine players from across sports, basketball, hockey, baseball, more, just for a chance to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Let's just say you think Luka Doncic is going to have more than 28 points in a game, or Jason Tatum less than 8 rebounds. Just pick those, put them all together, and boom, it is really easy to set a lineup in under 60 seconds. Prize Picks runs cool promos like Taco Tuesday, where they discount player projections up to 25% for even more value. The payouts are fast, safe, secure. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by Wayfair. Spring is here. That means it is home project season. Whether you're refreshing a room or tackling a full renovation, Wayfair is the best kept secret for all things home improvement. Small updates like stylish cabinet hardware to major upgrades like new vanities, sinks, outdoor lighting. We're working on our outside space right now. We got a bunch of Wayfair furniture out there already, so great place for us to start. Wayfair has quality projects for every budget. I mentioned we've got Wayfair furniture in our outdoor space that we use all the time, but all those little things like lighting and fixtures and the fun stuff to put around there to really make a space feel like yours. That's what we're doing next. Love that they have top brands like GE and Moen at great prices. Shopping is seamless. You find exactly what you need to fit your space and style. Wayfair makes home improvement easy. Get started now with wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. So, Andy, it is one of those things that people always say. If you want to be a contender in the NBA, you have to be a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. Well, if that's your standard, then the Minnesota Timberwolves are a team for you because they are a top 10 offense. They finished the season at 9th. They are a top 10 defense. They finished the season at 7th. If you're a net rating guy, Andy, and I know you are, the Minnesota Timberwolves were 4th.
We've got a back NBA tap that says net rating.
You got to be real hardcore for the NBA, but the stat guys love it.
Yeah, but it gets me a lot of ladies at Sloan.
Sladies.
I hope my wife isn't watching.
Well, she cancel that trip anytime. The Minnesota Timberwolves.
It also wins her over, and she doesn't even know what it means.
She just thinks it's hot. Mm-hmm. Minnesota Timberwolves 4th in net rating over the course of the full season. So, Andy, even with all of that upheaval that you were talking about and the injuries and guys in and out of the lineup and all this stuff, they still finished 4th in the NBA in net rating. So if you believe in this stuff, and the Lakers, by the way, again, it's hard to judge them by what anything that happened before the trade. Lakers were 14th. Lakers were 14th in defensive rating. Lakers were 11th in offensive rating over the course of the season. Minnesota is really good.
Yeah, I'd be more interested, and I don't have it in front of me, but their net rating and offensive defensive rating after the All-Star break.
Right, the Lakers. The Lakers were 17th in offense post All-Star break and 17th in defense and 15th in net rating.
Yeah. As far as looking over the Minnesota offense, and we're going to talk with people who know the team better than we do over the course of the week. I know we're going to talk with Ben Beacon from Locked On Wolves and try to track down someone like John Krasinski, who's, I think, the best. He's the best at covering the Wolves, one of the best at covering any team in the NBA, people like that. But a couple things that jumped out at me, their offense is really predicated on three-point shooting. Like it's much better outside their offense than inside. The 2-point percentage as a team is slightly below average, but they're 5th in the league for 3-point attempts, just under 40 a game. They shoot as a team around 38%, which is good. They got a lot of guys shooting well on volume from three. Anthony Edwards is 39.5% from behind the arc on 10.5 threes a game. Dante DiVincenzo just under 40% on 7 a game. Naz Reid 38% on 6 a game. Nickeil Alexander-Walker 38% on 4.5 a game. Mike Conley 41% on about 4.5 a game. The only less effective guys who shoot on any volume from behind the arc are Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels. The Lakers, for their part, allow, since the All-Star break, teams to hit 36% from deep, which is about middle of the pack. So guarding the arc could be something that swings the series for the Lakers. I also mentioned how the Wolves are not a great team from inside the arc. This is a weird thing about them. They're 8th in the league for second chance points, despite being kind of mid for offensive rebounds per game and offensive rebounding rate. So they're not, for a team as big as they are, they're not great on the glass. They're not terrible, but they're not great either. But they are clearly very opportunistic when they do get offensive rebounds. They're 3rd in the league for points per possession, for putbacks, 3rd in the league for overall percentile with putbacks. And this can be an issue for the Lakers, both preventing offensive rebounds, but also just you got to be aware, you got to reset when a team gets those second chance opportunities. And the Lakers are going to have to be really aware if Minnesota gets an offensive rebound near the basket, because they're really good in that area and also in all likelihood bigger than the Lakers around the rim. That being said, they are not particularly good at scoring in the paint. They're lower 3rd in the league. Like, it's really, so if nothing else, that can be interesting just for the Lakers with lack of true rim protection, how much that matters. But they're going to really have to be careful with offensive rebounds around the rim, because that's somewhere where Minnesota actually has been very good despite not being great in those areas I mentioned offensively.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, I'm be really curious where, you know, the Wolves are bottom, we'll call it bottom of the top third as a, in terms of rebounding rate. Defensively, the kind of same sort of, basically the same spot in offensive rebounding. Like, so, but again, the Lakers have unique potential deficiencies in those areas. I'm really curious where people put these teams. Like, when you see these first round predictions and stuff like that, I think from a popular standpoint, there's like, like I said in the first segment, like, the Luka Lakers, like this is their warm up or something like that. I wouldn't really. I think a lot of that is just based on the star power of Luka and LeBron and Reeves playing the way they have. I'm going to. I mean, I haven't come up with an official prediction yet, but I'm especially since they're playing at home, picking the Lakers, going to pick the Lakers to win this series.
So will I.
But I don't think it's going to be shorter than 6. I think it's a 6 or a 7 game series. These are really evenly matched teams. And I think what we're going to see with the Lakers, the other thing probably too that affects what people are thinking, Luka, it should be noted, torched Minnesota in the playoffs.
Funny you mention that. I've got those numbers in front of me.
So maybe we'll hold on to that and get that in the third segment. But like, part of the reason I think that the Lakers might be seen as this prohibitive favorite is because of what Luka did to the Wolves in the playoffs last year. But he did it to them with a different team, in a different situation against a different team. So like, Minnesota doesn't look the same way as they do now. They've got some different players and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you can 100% draw, because he did that last year, is what he's going to do this year. This is, to me, a very tight series with very competitive teams. And like most playoff matchups, it's going to be matchups rule. And we just don't know that much about how the Lakers match up with a lot of these teams, because there's not much sample size with the Luka Lakers. And even the one game we have from this season with Luka, you mentioned in the first segment, all the guys missing on Minnesota, Luka was still kind of getting his feet under. He had a pretty bad game,
He did have a bad game. Rui got injured during that game as well.
Right. He was 6 for 20. Like, I just don't know if there was much to take from that game either. So when we come back, though, you reacted to that Luka playoff thing from last year. You've got the numbers. Curious how much that matters. JJ Redick and the coaching staff certainly think it does. We'll get to it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs, they're almost here. Can't wait. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So look for something incredibly obvious, super easy. There's your first $5 bet. And I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether you're talking about picking your favorite team or diving into various player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. Three-pointers are going to be a big deal in this series, I'll tell you that much. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you even get to combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Andy, we know that people subscribe to the show with it's Spotify or iTunes. A lot of places people get their podcasts there. People do it through the YouTube channel, as we like to mention, but you can also get the Locked on Lakers newsletter. And right now, the Locked on Lakers, we are ready for playoff basketball, and we've got you covered every step of the way. If you subscribe to the Locked on Lakers podcast newsletter for expert analysis, insider analysis, and all the playoff action delivered straight to your inbox for free, you can be entered to win one of these 3 amazing prizes: a $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your sports watching setup, a $300 Game Time gift card, or a $200 Fanatics gift card. All really great stuff just for subscribing to the newsletter. You do that before April 30th, 2025 to be automatically entered to win. So don't miss a moment of what we hope is a long playoff run with the Locked on Lakers newsletter. Experience the playoffs like never before. So I do like, I gotta be honest with you, I've seen enough of Luka Doncic to be very comforted by the notion of, first, that he seems to really not like Rudy Gobert, and plays very well against people and teams he doesn't like, and has this history of success in the postseason with the Wolves.
He is absolutely going to be looking to destroy Rudy Gobert because Luka's got a grudge list that seems to be pretty long and continually being added to, but Rudy Gobert seems like he is going to remain on Luka Doncic's Mount Rushmore of hatred for the rest of his or Rudy's career, whichever lasts longer. Or just however, maybe even overseas, however long the two of them are going to keep playing basketball against each other. Luka clearly despises Rudy Gobert, which, by the way, puts him in company with most of the league. You mentioned how Luka during this February game against the Timberwolves really was not himself. 21 points, 6 of 20 shooting. He was the only starter in that game who was not a plus in the plus-minus column. It was during February where he was shooting 37% from the arc. 37% from the field, 24% from behind the arc. He didn't have a single game in that month at 50% from the field. He had more games below 20% from behind the arc than above. But that ain't Luka now. Over the last 10 games, Luka has been averaging almost 30 points a game on 49, 41, 81 splits, plus 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and a steal. In the last 5 games, he has scored 35 plus on incredible efficiency. In particular, he has been destroying first quarters, just dominating them. 9 points per game in first quarters of the last 10, 13 and a half in the last 5 on 50% plus from the field and behind the arc. So a lot of things are different, but that one of them includes Luka. You mentioned also last year's Western Conference Finals where Dallas won in 5. Luka averaged in that series about 32, 10, and 8 on 47, 43, 85 splits, nearly 8 trips to the line.
Real quick, I'm new. Is that good?
That's very good. That is
Okay.
very good. I also have that as part of my back tat. And
you knew this trade was coming, that you had Luka's splits against the Wolves in last year's playoffs tatted on your back before the trade even happened.
I know an aphrodisiac when I see one. But the other thing that I think is important to remember is, as much as the Wolves are a different team this year, I think defensively, in terms of the guys that they're going to be throwing at Luka, it's pretty similar to last year. Like, Donte DiVincenzo is new, and he'll be game for that matchup, but he's too small. Like, Luka is going to be able to push him around. Julius Randle is strong enough to deal with Luka, but I don't think he's quick enough. And frankly, I don't think he's a good enough defender. So I think a lot of the changes with Minnesota from last year to this year, at least in terms of Luka, maybe not overall for every player on both sides of the ball, but in terms of how the Wolves will deal with Luka, I'm inclined to say that it's going to be pretty similar in terms of strategy. I obviously can't say the outcome's going to be the same, but at least on paper, and maybe we'll ask people who cover the team, see if they disagree, that piece of it doesn't feel that much different to me, which obviously, given those numbers, is pretty damn reassuring.
It is. And, I think it just becomes a question of how the Lakers as a group deal with some of those potential size questions. They're going to have, other than, I guess, maybe Golden State, like, every team is going to present them with some level of size issue. But we've seen them play Oklahoma City very well. We've seen them play against big teams. It's just that oftentimes you're trying to counter a scoring center. Like, Gobert's a little different, and but what the Lakers have a lot of potential to put Gobert in some very uncomfortable situations defensively, where he's better in space and he gets credit for it. And this notion of, like, Rudy always gets played off the floor in the playoffs is wildly overcooked. But the Lakers can make him uncomfortable. And I am sure that JJ Redick and the staff, who have been starting this scouting process already, will be going deep into that. One of the things that I will say is almost a counter to what I was saying before is, like, playoffs are based on matchups. But the other thing about it is it's also kind of a talent thing. And if you were having a draft of the teams, of all of these teams, you create whatever team you want out of all these rosters, who would be the first pick? It'd be Luka. Who would be the second pick?
LeBron
or Ant?
LeBron or Ant. I think LeBron, just because he has a better overall track record in the playoffs. Okay. He's LeBron. Like, I think if LeBron's available after Luka's been taken, even if you can make rational arguments for taking Ant, it's just going to feel weird leaving LeBron.
LeBron on the board. No question. Yeah. But let's just say you do.
Sure.
He's clearly the third guy off the board.
Absolutely.
Who's the fourth?
Austin.
I think so too. So if you have 3 of the best 4 players in a series, doesn't that count for something? I mean, like, I understand the matchups can be very challenging and all this other stuff. Like, and they're all playing well, which they're all going to be rested. They're all playing well. The Lakers have all this confidence, smart coaching staff, stars that know the opponent and all that. I mean, I don't want to overthink this with the idea, like, I don't want to be dismissive of Minnesota, but I also don't want to
them at all.
I mean, again, 4th in the NBA this year.
Ant is good enough. Like, whether you think he's the second best player in this series, third best, whatever, Ant is good enough to win you a game, maybe 2 games by himself.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about dudes who are not going to be afraid of the moment? That list includes Anthony Edwards.
I mean, honestly, a lot of this comes down to me, the Lakers get to play 4 games at home, and they've been so good in their own building and have improved steadily on the road over the course of the year. So, like, if they need a road win, I believe they can certainly get it. And then, they have guys who are not going to be scared to go into another team's arena. That's the other part of it. And this, by the way, is a thing that is going to sustain the Lakers through a few rounds. I think maybe when you get to Oklahoma City, it's the sheer volume of good players that OKC has maybe changes that math a little bit. But in this one in particular, I thought about it too. I'm like, they have 3 of the best 4 players in the series, I think.
I think they likely do. Minnesota, for what it's worth, and I think it matters a lot, they've been very good on the road. So while I do believe in that Lakers home court advantage because they really have been one of the best home teams in the league, I think often against Western Conference opponents, the Wolves have been a good road team. So you can't...
Minnesota's 20, for people that don't know, 24-17 on the road, which is good,
right.
Which is, as you say, quite good.
Yes, it's quite a good record. What I think is interesting, though, when we were laying out the list of, who would you take first, who would you take second, third, fourth, and I said Austin, I think, is the 4th best player. It's not just that Austin over the last couple months has been playing extremely well. I mean, I'm the guy who had been very vocal in my concerns about whether or not he could reach this level. Always thought he was very good, but the level we're talking about is truly, it's the 5% of the league at the most, and he's there. Julius Randle is a really good player. The reason I would take Austin ahead of him, at least for now, Julius's track record in the playoffs has been bad. And I really like Julius a lot. We covered him like him as a person as much as a player, but evaluating this objectively, he has had a lot of struggles in the playoffs. Yeah. So even if you think Randall may be more talented than Reeves, and I think you could probably find some people who think that, because Julius at his best,
Julius is a very good player.
He's really good, and he is a load to deal with.
He's what he is he is like he's like Rudy Gobert in the sense that he is a very good player with certain obvious flaws. And what do we do with players like that? I mean, you mentioned John Krasinski, the Minnesota beat writer, not the actor. Like all of these people that we're going to try to line up and get on the show over the course of the week, Randall is one of the guys that I really want to ask about, because what I have not seen is 50 Minnesota Timberwolves games this year. And so what did he look like down the stretch? He had a couple 30-point games down the stretch, mid-20s and all that stuff. He also had some 8 to 10 point. Which version, what do they need Randall to do in a series like this?
Look, if Randall plays well in these playoffs, all of a sudden the Wolves are going to become a serious problem.
Because you could start making Gobert 5, 6. McDaniel's a really good player.
Very good.
Naz Reid is the Lakers might have 3 of the top 4, but then you're going to start stacking up Wolves.
And Naz Reid has a track record of beating up the Lakers.
Yes, and so it's just does dominating 5 through 10 in the series in terms of players, does that matter more than dominating 1 through 4? I don't know. It's going to be a fascinating series. I'm excited to get into it. I love the fact that Lakers have the week off. I love that we get a week to really think about this series. As I said, we're going to try to get a bunch of guests on, Ben Beacon from Locked On Wolves, starting there, and then moving through our extensive Rolodex, Andy, of media contacts. And it's going to be a fun week, a great series. Looking forward to it. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where we can go hang out with over 34,000 subscribers to the channel. We will see everyone tomorrow.